Hello, my name is Isabel Diaz, and this is my presentation on John Stuart Mill. He is an English philosopher, political economist slash theorist, and civil servant. The picture on the left is him as reference. On May 20th, 1806, he was born. Sadly, he died May 7th, 1873. A little background information on him is that he was an impactful figure of the 18th and 19th century. He had a mental breakdown at the age of 20 because of the pressure of becoming extraordinary. His father was in absolute control of his academics. What helped him through his mental breakdown was romantic poetry. Eventually, he had an affair with Harriet Taylor, in the picture on the left as reference in 1807 and died in 1858. They met in 1830 and got married after a year of her late husband, John Taylor, in 1851. He was a British philosopher who worked on theoretical philosophy and political economy. He believed people's rights would be secured if they had the knowledge and ability to stand up for them. In 1863, he wrote about utilitarianism. He refined Bentham's utilitarian ethics by distinguishing between higher and lower pleasures, arguing that intellectual and moral pleasures are superior to physical ones. He advocated for women to vote, be property owners, and achieve social and economic status, what we have today. He believed gender hierarchies held women and men back from living as equals. Moving on to civil rights, I'm going to be discussing what he was involved in, organized, and argued for. In 1848, the Principles of Political Economy, he discussed the wages, the labor, and social progress, advocating for workers, cooperatives, and profit sharing. 1859, he wrote on liberty. He argued that free expression is essential for personnel and societal progress. He opposed censorship and believed that all ideas, even the unpopular ones, should be debated and nobody should feel invalid. Moving on to 1861, the consideration of representative government. Mill voiced his belief in democracy, the individual's right to vote with an electoral system based on suffrage, a representative body, and public support for each party that reflects their voices proportionately, somewhat what we have today. And moving on to the Contagious Diseases Acts, he opposed arbitrary arrest and medical examinations of prostitutes. He received a lot of backlash, and I'll discuss more what happened with that backlash. In 1869, Mill published The Subjection of Women. He argued for women's suffrage and equal legal rights, making him one of the first prominent male feminists. He even introduced a petition during his time in the British Parliament for women's voting rights in 1866. Leading to advocacy, he was involved in the debate on the second reform bill that was in 1866 to 67. He advocated for proportional representation, suffrage to women householders. Mill believed debates would not only benefit the individual but also society. They were able to engage their ideas of what went wrong or what went right and grow as a society and not just individuals. There are multiple perspectives on the subject and not one view should be right or perspective. And 1867, the extraditional bill was introduced that restricted the rights of foreigners to seek asylum in Britain. He was one of the leaders who ran a campaign to impeach the governor of Jamaica, Irie, who repressed riots by the use of court martial. Unfortunately, in 1868, the case was dismissed, despite his hard work of having him impeached. He was attacked for advocating for those who can't. Like I mentioned earlier, all of the controversial advocacy caused him to get attacked. He on social rights and racial equality for what he was fighting for, leading to slavery. Mill strongly opposed slavery and criticized it as a violation of individual freedom. He supported the movement that abolished and argued against racist justifications for oppression. In 1865, he was a parliamentary candidate, like I mentioned before, a member of parliament, or known as MP, for Westminster. He served from 1865 to 1868 as a Liberal Party representative. During his time in the parliament, he advocated for women's suffrage, introduced the first petition for women's rights, labor rights, electoral reform, and free speech. After leaving the parliament in 1868, he became more politically active than before by organizing the Land Tenure Reform Association in 1871, which is an imposition of large taxes on unearned land value, and promoted cooperative agriculture. And before his death, he was refining his ideas on libertarian democracy and utilitarianism. All his old work that he's done, or other political figures, he worked on it, argued against it, did what he had to do. He influenced Lloyd George, a fellow British politician, and other women wanting to be involved in politics or already a political figure. He shaped the ideas on democracy, rights, and free markets. The picture on the left is his urn, and I believe his wife was buried next to him. I cannot find the picture, unless it does say I am not trilingual in French, or trilingual, sorry. Um, he Unfortunately, his wife died in 1858. He spent much of his life in Avignon. It's a city in France where he died on May 8th, 1873. What he was fighting for, all the liberalism, political economy, and just what we're continuing to fight for today. However, it's just more progress than before. However, we are going back in time, but he was a big impact. Even after his death, we are still talking about him. He is a very important, he pioneered and he advocated for gender equality and is a feminist. So these are my sources that I use, the three. And that is all. Thank you.